morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on. And welcome to the Across the Pitch EFL Week 5 Review, Week 6 Preview Edition. My name is Phil Kennedy, and like every week, I'm joined here by Tony Robinson, where we're going to go through the EFL League One stats. Now, as you may have guessed, this is the fifth of these episodes that we've done in the new series this season. We are making a little bit of an adjustment, though. As you may have noticed last week, Tony and I recorded an Accrington Stanley preview in lieu of my regular Accrington Stanley preview article. That went so well that we're going to go ahead and do that every week now, as opposed to the article every Thursday or Friday. Tony and myself will be getting together and breaking down the Accrington game in depth in usually about a 30-minute format. What that means for this show is going to be a little bit less Accrington content, because what we're going to do is we're still going to, of course, talk about what happened in last Saturday's Accrington game on these shows, but we won't be doing any kind of Accrington preview during our weekly review. That's going to be saved for the separate Accrington show. That, in turn, is going to allow us to kind of go through the list of all 12 results that happened in the League One each week. We're not going to go in-depth on every game. We're going to continue going in-depth on 3 or 4 games as we have, but we're at least going to go down and mention each result to kind of give everybody an idea of everything that's happening in the league and make sure that every team gets touched on. So now with that intro, how are you doing today, Tony?
I'm good, Phil. That was a great intro, and it's nice to set things straight and improve as we grow and get into the season and make some adjustments, much like coaching staff is we're making adjustments as the play and the games go on. So, looking forward to it, Phil. It's always good to chat with you and talk League One football.
To put it in football terms, I'd say we're changing our shape more than we're changing our formation.
Yeah, we don't have a lot on the sub bench, so we're just changing. We're just making some adjustments.
Well, Tony, let's jump right into the results, because the first match is one that it is one of the ones that we're going to go on in depth on, and that we talked about quite a bit last week. It was one that you correctly predicted. Also want to give out a huge shout to our loyal listener, Rebecca Grimshaw, who made a great analysis on this match. This is the one that went down Friday night, and I don't think it was necessarily a surprise to see Fleetwood be the team that finally beat Hull City, because, we all thought Fleetwood was pretty good. I don't think anybody thought we would see Fleetwood put in 4 goals, though. What were your thoughts on that one, Tony?
Well, I'd like to take credit for a right prediction on that one, Phil, but I actually I had it down as a 1-1 draw, and we both had it as a draw. You a scoreless draw, and me the 1-1. But looking at that match, I thought it was an even match, until Fleetwood got their second goal. I got to give a mention to Saunders. I thought he played outstanding. That first goal was a really nice effort on his part. But when it was 1-1, and Hull were well into the game, but they made a blind pass into the center of the pitch, and that's just any level. It's just a no-no. And then that went. Fleetwood took advantage of that and it made it a 2-1. Then give up 2 goals on set pieces. I think the third goal really took the wind out of Hull's sail, and they didn't look that good in the last 20 minutes or so. And Fleetwood full value for their win. We talked about shooting percentages a lot, Phil, and they had 19 with 9 on target. So when you do that, you're going to win. Although Hull wasn't too bad at 5 on target out of 13. But I think Fleetwood, full value.
Well, those are all great points, Tony. And I'm glad that you mentioned Harvey Saunders. He did have that brace, like you mentioned. And he's an interesting guy because he's 23 years old. So he's not really a kid per se, but he's still a young player. He doesn't have much of a professional record. This is his second year with Fleetwood. Last year, though, he made 6 appearances and played 35 minutes. So basically, he was getting on the pitch for about 6 minutes every time he came on last year. This year now, he's had that was his first start that he's ever made in the football league. But he's got 3 goals and 1 assist in 4 appearances, 131 minutes. So, I mean, this guy is somebody that I think Fleetwood probably looked at as an impact player possibly coming into the season. He did so well in that role that he might be their starting center forward going forward.
Yeah, I think he's made a really good case for starting, and hard to put him on the bench after that performance. And again, your man Camp's got a key goal there at the 47-minute mark too.
Yeah, absolutely. He has really been a key for Fleetwood. It seems like when he has scored this year, that they've won. When he hasn't scored, that they haven't won. It has been kind of the story. But I think it was good to see them get back on track. And I think that we had a bit of a recalibration week, if you will, in League One, where I think that we had where you saw some of the teams that were maybe not doing as well as expected. They came out and got a win, where some of the teams that were doing better than expected, they came out and got a loss, and kind of moved the table all in all a little bit closer to where we thought it might be at the beginning of the season. You also mentioned shooting percentage, and one of the things that I looked at is 11 out of 12 matches. The team that shot the better percentage won this week, regardless of the number of shots taken, just the shooting percentage. The Wimbledon-Swindon match is the only outlier. So, I mean, it just proves time and again how important that shooting percentage stats. I mean, I don't think that there's many statistics at all other than goals scored that you could pull up and say, this team won 11 out of 12 if they had this stat.
Yeah, it's an interesting stat, but very an accurate one, because to me it makes obviously more sense than the possession, and we'll talk about that in a couple other matches coming up, because possession doesn't always guarantee a win.
Well, absolutely. And let's talk about a couple other matches here real quick. And this one we're not going to go real deep on. I think that the most important thing to mention with Oxford is Oxford United will be making up their game with Crewe Alexandra at 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on Tuesday. We should have this out before that game happens, but on Saturday they played at Gillingham and lost 3-1. So I think that we're continuing to see Oxford struggle. Obviously, the rescheduled games aren't helping any. They're going to be at 2 days rest tomorrow. So I think that's really the biggest story here. Gillingham, nice home win for them. What do you have to add on that, Tony?
Yeah, I think they're a team that we're going to have to keep an eye on. They've got a great record so far. Scored 9, only given up 6, won 3. So they're a team that I think we're going to have to sort of pay a little more attention to, because so far they seem to be for real. Oxford's got a really tough spell coming up now with 3 key matches. As I said, I was thinking of Oxford being a top a playoff team, and we'll probably have a better answer after the next 3 matches.
Yeah, I think that we're still seeing a bit of that Super Bowl hangover Oxford does have a game in hand on most of the other teams at the table, that, of course, being the game that's coming up tomorrow. But right now, on 3 points, they are sitting 21st, which would put them in the relegation zone. They're 1-0-3, 5 goals scored, 8 goals against. So I mean, it's not one of those things where they're getting blown out. It just seems like they're kind of losing by 1 goal every time they go out, and there's still plenty of time for them to get back on track. But it's with Gillingham and Oxford, you definitely have two teams that are going in opposite directions right now. So let's look at the next match, and with this one, I think we have the opposite of Oxford, where we have a team that we thought was going to be good, got slow out of the gate. Now they're starting to turn things around, and that's Peterborough, who won 2-0 at Northampton.
Yeah, I think Northampton are starting to become the team that I think we expected, and that they'll be in a relegation battle. Peterborough, again, playing to form and getting a nice result at Northampton. I think it was, based on what I've seen, it was a well-deserved win.
Yeah, I mean, this was the quintessential recalibration week game, if you will, where you had Peterborough, a team that was a little lower in the table than he expected, going out and getting a pretty convincing road win. You had Northampton, which was a little higher up in the table than they had expected, kind of dropping down to 19th, which is closer to where you would expect them to be. So, yeah, I mean, this is a game that really just kind of fell into the whole mold of the week.
Yeah, they dominated in all aspects of the match, so a good result and not too unexpected.
So the next game we need to talk about is the one where our friend Matt Pierce is going to have a bone to pick with
you. Yeah, I kind of did give them a bit of a jinx, I guess. I was being hesitant for a while about Lincoln, and after the win they had at Blackpool, I was convinced they were going to win that one. Really, they when you look at the stats too, is they had 6% of the possession. As we said, that doesn't always count, but I think what let them down is they did have a good 9 shots in total, but only 3 on target. And the goal they got, they give it as an own goal, which is hard to, when you look at the replay, I don't know if that's the right call or not, but it was going in anyway. But it was a good display from Bristol Rovers. Can't take anything away from them. The penalty call for them, I could see where Lincoln was saying, it may have been outside the box, but I think the actual foul, he started to tackle before, but I think the actual foul was inside the box. So probably the right call. A tough one for Lincoln, because I think it was one they expected to win. And that may be part of the problem is in this league, you can't take anything for granted.
Well, absolutely. Those are all great points, Tony. And I think that this was, once again, a quintessential calibration week game, because I do think Lincoln is at least good enough to be a playoff team. And I think that the thing is they really kind of showed it in this game, even in the loss. And with Bristol Rovers, you have a club where we kind of expected them to be mid-table. We got off to a really slow start. Now they're getting back on track and looking like they are going to be a mid-table team. Lincoln, they won their first 4 matches in a row in this league. Nobody's going to go undefeated every year. Even the team that wins the league is probably going to lose 6, 7, 8 matches over the course of the year. And here's what I look at it, and you already kind of touched on all of these things. Questionable or not, Lincoln had an own goal. They conceded a penalty. And the thing that you didn't mention is they also had Adam Jackson sent off in the 83rd minute. So, I mean, if you come into a match where you concede an own goal, you concede a penalty, and you have a starting player get set off and you still only lose by one, I'd say you're doing all right.
Yeah, I think that was a frustration red card that he got. But this is a match that it's the next one for Lincoln is going to be to see how they rebound from this this loss, because they can go one or two ways. And I'm not convinced that they are a playoff team, but we'll see how they do after the next couple of matches, because that's going to tell the tale, I think.
All right, Tony. Well, we're not going to spend as much time on this as we normally would, but thankfully I was incorrect in my prediction, and Accrington Stanley finally got the bogey off their back. They beat Rochdale at the Wham Stadium 2-1. It was the first home win for Accrington since 1960 against Rochdale. Their first win period against Rochdale since 2013. They had lost 6 in a row. They got behind early. It was a 0-0 match at halftime. And then in a 10-minute stretch, they managed to swing things. Not even a 10-minute stretch, a 3-minute stretch. Yeah. Joe Pritchard got a goal in the 64th minute on what looked like a cross, but we'll take it as a shot. I think he called it a schross on Twitter. Yeah. And then Sean Russell making his first start for Accrington Stanley. He got the deciding goal in the 66th minute. Just a massive win for Stanley. And Tony, you watched that one. What were your thoughts on what you saw there?
Well, I think Stanley were full value for the win, although Rochdale did play a good match. And really, this is the first match that Rochdale has had over 50% possession. And really, you got to say that's a lot to do with the last 10 minutes, because they were pressing for the equalizer, and really had a chance in injury time, but put the header wide. I thought Pritchard was definitely the man of the match. He had a goal and assist, and the 2 goals that they scored, there was leading up to those were 2 great passes from the center backs. That pass from Burgess across from the left to the right on his foot of Pritchard, and then he brought it back and did his schross, or whatever you call it. But I think the center backs, the quality they've got now, they're starting to play that long ball out to the wings, and I was impressed with that. And Russell, it was nice to see him, and that was a tricky goal, because he turned when we got the ball and he turned and side-footed it into the net from a pass from Pritchard. That showed quality and somebody with football sense who knew where the net was. So very impressive. It was a little tight at the end, but as I said, I would full confidence that Stanley was going to win. So it's nice to get the monkey off the back, but a good win.
Well, one thing I would say here, just in terms of credit where credit is due, on the Rochdale goal, Alex Newby, he's not the one that got that. It was Jimmy Keohan who scored that. But Alex Newby really made that goal happen. And what was impressive is how he did it. In the Premier League, they talk so much about how hard it is to beat Virgil van Dijk off the dribble. In my opinion, Accrington Stanley has a guy at the center back position who's a bit like a Virgil van Dijk, and that he's just real hard to get beat off the dribble. You don't see it happen very often, but not only did Newby beat Ross Sykes, he actually made him fall completely down before making that pass. So, I mean, just to be able to do that and beat Ross Sykes like that really shows that this guy's got some skill.
Yeah, and I think that was probably one of the reasons why they scored. I think people were expecting, especially the defenders, and over there on playing left wing back was Uwakwe. and the player that scored just got away from him at the last second on the cross. So it just goes to show you have to play the whole thing through, and you can't take anything for granted. Although Sykes 99% of the time is going to block that, you've got to be prepared for that 1% where he doesn't, and because it can result in a goal, and that's what happened. Yeah, Rochdale are played well, and I think they have the history playing, giving them confidence. But those two goals, back to back, in the second week in a row, Stanley have done that. When they score, they get on their front foot and press for another one. So they can score quickly and full value.
I mean, I think the other thing that's worth noting is that puts Accrington up to 6th in the standings, 3-0-2, 9 points. If the playoffs started today, Accrington would be in them. Now, obviously, we're only 5 matches in, but I'm trying to think back to the beginning part of the 2018-19 season, but I feel like this might be the highest up that Stanley has ever been in the standings this far into the season.
Yeah, they had a good start. I think the season you mentioned, and I think they ran into some injury trouble and they didn't have the depth. But this year, John Coleman has obviously brought in some really good talent. And
I remember at one point in that season, they were actually 7-7-7 in 10th place after 21 games. And that was kind of their high water mark for that season. So I think 10th after 21 matches in League One is a kind of historic high water mark for Accrington. And that's talking about the whole history of the club, of course.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to Nottingham that come in and played come on as a sub in the second half. You can see his experience, his calming influence. I think he's going to be a real asset back there. He's tall. I mean, they got to have, when you look at the center backs, I'd be hard pressed to find any team with taller center backs than Stanley has. A good showing for him, and definitely a good signing by John Coleman with him.
Absolutely. And, we have Dion Charles is now more than halfway through his suspension. Sean McConville sounds like he's getting closer and closer every week. If this team can stay healthy, I mean, obviously injuries and knocks are going to happen, but if this team can avoid any major injuries to key players, then I don't see any reason that this couldn't be a top half of the table when those guys come back.
Yeah, and I think Sean McConville is going to be hard-pressed to get back into the starting lineup straight away. We might see a couple of sub appearances for him to start with. But on that left side where Pritchard has been playing, it's going to be tough to you can't take him out of the lineup. You're just going to have to make it work if you have both of them on the pitch at the same time.
I don't do it often for Accrington Stanley, but for Phoenix Rising, I send in player ratings after each match where they have me rate each player 1 through 10. And very rarely do I give an outfield player a 10 out of 10. I mean, to me, if it's a clean sheet, I always give the keeper a 10 because, I mean, what else could he really do? But for an outfield player, I don't give many 9s, and I almost never give a 10, but Pritchard was a solid 10 out of 10 on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. He's with the playing time in this season and the confidence that Coleman has shown him, and he's rewarding that. And definitely he's improving, and he could be a very a big talent in this league this year. And I think teams are going to have to be wary of him because he's just all the way around. He's got the tools to be a complete player.
Yeah, I mean the way that I would put it is this. I would say so when I do my player ratings, To me, a 7 out of 10 is an average game. If I think a guy played his 90 minutes, didn't do anything to hurt the team, didn't really do anything to help the team, I'll call that a 7. If a guy had a little bit better than average game, to me, that's an 8. If a guy has an outstanding game, and I'm talking had a brace or a goal or an assist or something, that's a 9 to me. A 10 to me, the only time I would give a 10, the way that I describe that game, is somebody watching the game for the first time that had never seen a soccer game before would be able to say that guy's the best player on the field. That's what you have to do for a 10 out of 10 game. And I think Pritchard was that good on Saturday that if you'd set somebody in front of it and had them watch it, they would have said that guy is better than everybody else.
Yeah, it's certainly man of the match performance.
Absolutely. Well, let's move forward here, and we'll just real quickly mention that the Doncaster and Shrewsbury match was postponed, so we'll be waiting on that one. The next one is the one match that was an outlier where the team with the lower shooting percentage won. That was AFC Wimbledon over Swindon Town. That was a 1-0 victory for Wimbledon at Swindon. Was this one a surprise for you at all, Tony?
Yeah, it was. That match I had down as I actually had a draw. You did have it as a Swindon win 3-1. Yeah, definitely. I didn't see AFC Wimbledon winning, but Pigott, who's doing really really well this season, and you take him off that team, and they're a different squad altogether. Getting in behind them, the defense to score that one goal. And if you're only going to get one shot on target, you got to make it count, and they did. So there's an example, like you said, that Wimbledon won despite all the things going against them, and it happens sometimes, and that's why you play the game. And yeah, Wimbledon are a team now we're going to have to keep an eye on, Phil.
Yeah, I think that Tony up there in Canada. You have hockey, and in hockey, sometimes you see where one team will just absolutely dominate another team, and they still lose. And why is that normally happens?
Well, I think in hockey, it's more to do in a case like that is to do with the goalkeeper.
Well, that's what I think it is here, because I look at Connell Truman made 6 out of 6 saves. To me, this is just a matter of Swindon ran into a hot keeper.
Well, it could be. You could be well on the mark with that one, Phil. And we'll see how it develops for Wimbledon going forward.
Yeah, I mean that's what I see here is so we've got an outlier message here, and I kind of look and I see, okay, so what caused this game to be an outlier? Because Swindon shot 50%, 6 out of 12, which is good, and by our numbers that's going to win it most of the time. Especially when you have Swindon 1 out of 5, 20%. I mean, this is screaming Swindon, but then you ran into that hot keeper.
Well, yeah, as based on what we've said, you with those stats, you're going to win 95% of the time, and it's just as you said, it's they ran into a hot goalkeeper, and it happens, and this was an example of it.
Moving on, we've only got 3 matches left. Just quickly, we'll mention Crew Alexandra getting the 3-0 win over Wigan at home. I don't think this was a tremendous surprise. Maybe just the fact that 3-0 is maybe the surprising part to me.
Yeah, I would have thought that match was going to be a lot closer. They had a 2-0 lead at halftime, and they won it going away 3-0. When you score 3 goals, you've got to win the game, and you look at the stats, a terrible one for for Wigan is 13 shots but 0 on target. Well, the best you can hope for then is to get a draw, and they just didn't do it. So and Crew 9 shots in total, 9 on target. That'll win you games with that spread in stats. Yeah, full.
Yeah, I think we just had our outlier game on shooting percentage. This is the definition. You have one team 0%, one team 75%, 75% team wins 3-0. I mean, there you have it.
Yeah, I think Wigan are going to have to get themselves together with the scoring, and they've got a -4 goal difference, so they're going to have to do some tidying up, or else they could get dragged into the bottom half.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a perfect illustration because Wigan actually won the possession battle, 52-48. I have down here that both teams had the exact same 12 shots attempted, but once again, 0 on target for Wigan, 9 for Crew. And it just shows that it doesn't matter what your possession is. It doesn't matter how many shots you're taking. It really matters of how many of those shots that you're taking are you getting from a good spot, getting on frame, making the keeper work. And unless you get a shot on frame and make the keeper work, like you said, Tony, you can't hope for more than a draw.
Yep. Yeah, that's a convincing win for Crew.
All right. Well, let's go into the one that we talked about quite a bit, and that's Pompey, who we've been following pretty close, picking up a 2-1 win over the world's most popular team, MK Dons, at Fratton Park. What were your thoughts on this? To me, this pretty much went about like I thought it would, and in terms of the scoreline, maybe not how it got there.
Well, Portsmouth, again, they got a goal early, so they're either scoring late or they're scoring early. And after 2 minutes, they went up. And that, for against a team like MK Dons, is probably going to be enough. And it can, drive the wind right out of their sails. Then the teams exchange penalties. But it's a good win for Portsmouth. Although, when you look at the possession, I'm really surprised that this is MK Dons at 71%, and so Portsmouth 29%. Whether they decided to sit back after that first goal, 19 shots for MK and 6 on target, and only 4 shots for Pompey and 2 on target. So definitely they were playing more a defensive game. Probably to protect the lead, but they saw it out and got a win, which one would have expected against MK Dons to be true.
In other words, what you're saying is after the match, all the Portsmouth players walked off the pitch and got offered a job with Greyhound.
Well, yeah, they probably did. To say they parked the bus would be an understatement. But that seems to be what Jacket will do, and I think that's sometimes what upsets the Pompey fans, is that they want to see more attractive football, and sometimes they just don't get that. He plays for results, and as a manager, when you're paid on result-based business, you can't blame him, really.
Well, absolutely. And I think that that's the same complaint that a lot of the Sunderland fans are having about Phil Parkinson. It's they want to see attractive football from their big money team. And I think right now, Parkinson and Jacket are just like, we need to get out of this damn tier.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right, Tony, we have 2 matches from last week that we haven't gone over yet. One of those is the Tractor Boys of Ipswich Town. Really took Blackpool out behind the woodshed 4-1. And this is one of those ones where it's kind of the anti-calibration day game, if you will. this is one where I would have looked at and said, okay, maybe Blackpool gets on track. Maybe Ipswich comes back to earth a little bit. But it really, it's starting to look like this just might be a long season at Bloomfield Road. Blackpool they seem to be struggling quite a bit.
Yeah, there's only one team giving up more goals against than the Blackpool, and that's Burton Albion. Blackpool have conceded 10. They have a -5 goal difference. Not a good stat is when you look at for Ipswich, they only had 4 shots on target, and they won 4-1. So that's not it's not a good day at the office for the Blackpool keeper. It's Blackpool are a team that we expected a lot more, and they're going to have to do some work pretty quick to turn this around, or else you get 10 or 12 games into the season and you're not pushing up the table. It can turn into a long season. Ipswich are a team that has played well, and I think they caught Blackpool on a poor day. But again, got to give credit because Ipswich made everything count.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with Blackpool, I think one of the main concerns coming into the year was where they were going to get the goals from with Armand Nonule leaving. He had 15 for them last year. They had CJ Hamilton. He came in from Mansfield Town. So far, he's gotten 3 goals in 5 matches. So it really looks like they've gotten their man that's been able to make up for Nonule's absence. The problem is they haven't gotten much of anything from anybody else. He has 3 of the 5 goals that they've scored as a team this season. So, that's just not going to get it done. They've got 5 goals through 5 games. They've allowed 10 goals. So basically right now they're scoring 1 goal per game. They're allowing 2 goals per game. Very obvious why that's not going to get it done. And the big thing is the defense, because in League One, I think anytime you get over 1.5 goals allowed per game, you're in a dangerous spot. If you go over 2 goals per game, you're just really not going to win many games in this league.
No, they're going to have to tighten things up at the back. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, the very last game that we have for this week is Plymouth Argyle. And Plymouth Argyle was able to get another win, 2-0 over Burton Albion. And this is one of the games that we talked about last week. And I don't really think either of us were too surprised by this. I think we see Burton as one of those teams that's really on the backslide.
Yeah, they're conceding goals again. As I mentioned, they've given up way too many. Plymouth seemed to be a solid side, and again with their shooting accuracy that paid off. 17 shots right on target out of a total of 13. Again, a good percentage, and they made it count. So Burton going the wrong way, and Plymouth are doing very, very well, and probably better than maybe some people expected. So full credit for the win.
What was that? Was that a shot at me?
No, no.
Well, I'm fair to admit that I was a little off on Plymouth. They certainly look like they're going to be better than I thought they would. But Tony, now that we've gotten through all the games from last week, I know that you've written down a couple for the upcoming Saturday, week 6. Let's take a quick look at those with a reminder that we're going to be doing a full preview of the Accrington game later this week. So we're just going to look at 3 or 4 of the other matches. What was the first one you had, Tony?
Yeah, I got 2 for Saturday because we've got another full slate on Tuesday the 20th. So I've just picked 2 matches for Saturday and then 2 for the following Tuesday, and we'll give our predictions. Peterborough are home to Oxford. Peterborough's 5th in the table. Oxford struggling to get going. I see this one. I don't see Oxford getting out of their slump against Peterborough. So I'm going for a Peterborough win 2-1, Phil.
Well, Tony, I'm right on board with you because I feel like Peterborough and Oxford are two teams that are going in the wrong direction. This is one I wanted to look at the betting line, though, because this is one of those ones where, maybe if the casino had put something out there that didn't quite reflect what we were both thinking, that might be a trigger that maybe there'd be an upset. But right now, I'm looking at Peterborough is heavily favored, plus 104, which is pretty much even money. Meanwhile, for Oxford United, the casino is willing to give you $24.50 for every $10 you bet. So basically, 2.5 to 1. This just tells me Oxford's in trouble. I'm going to say 3-0 to the Posh.
Okay. The next one I had was match was Portsmouth against a team that we haven't really discussed a lot, and we should be giving them more credit as Doncaster Rovers. I mean, they're sitting 11th, but they've only played 4 matches, having won 2, drawn 1, lost 1. And they're playing at Portsmouth, so this should be really a really good match. And based on the fact, Portsmouth, if they get a goal, they like to defend, and the fact that Doncaster's got a really good defensive record. I'm going with a draw on this one, Phil. I'm looking at I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tony, I was kind of thinking draw myself when you first mentioned the tie. One thing that we do need to mention is that Donny may be a little bit out of their element this week because they did have the game postponed last match. So, I mean, rest is a good thing, but too much rest can be a bad thing, and he can come in a little bit rusty, especially with a team like Poppy, who seems to be kind of getting on track. To me, the clincher is that looking at the betting line, we just talked about that last matchup where Peterborough was plus 104. Portsmouth is actually also plus 104, and Doncaster is plus 260, which means you can get even more money betting on Doncaster than you could on Oxford, and that just tells me that the odds makers they think this one's going to the Pompey. I'm gonna go 1-0 Pompey.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, but you could be right, Phil. You could be right. Moving on to the Tuesday slate of matches, I'm going to look at Hull versus AFC Wimbledon. Hull lost their first match, as we saw, against Fleetwood, and Wimbledon really doing better than I think a lot of people expected. You've got a team that's third going against a 10th place team, and Hull at home. I see them rebounding this match, and I'm going to give them the win 2-1 over Wimbledon.
Absolutely, Tony, and I think that this is probably the easiest game on the whole slate to predict because, like you said, I mean, Hull stumbled against Fleetwood, but there was reasons to see that coming and reasons to think that Fleetwood is good. AFC Wimbledon, they're a team where, obviously Pigott's a nice player. Obviously Longman looks like he might be a nice player, but they just don't have the horses to even stay where they're at. The betting line, that makes it even more certain. Right now, Hull is at minus 167, which means you have to bet $10 just to win $6. Meanwhile, if I bet $10 on AFC Wimbledon, I win $45. They're going off at 4.5 to 1. And so Hull City, they're also a team that's shown they're capable of beating teams they're supposed to beat. And so far, the first 4 weeks of the season, they did that 4 times in a row by 2-0. So I'm going to say that's what they do, 2-0 over Wimbledon to Hull.
Yeah, I think we both got a whole win on that one based on what we've seen to date. The next one I wanted to sort of pick on was, or discuss, I shouldn't say pick on them, is the Blackpool at home to Charlton, because this is a big match for, well, for both teams, but more so Blackpool because of their position in the league, 22nd going into the weekend. Charlton are just above them with only one win as well. Yeah, both teams are going to want to desperately win this match to move up the table. I see some goals in this one because of basically Blackpool concedes goals. Charlton hasn't scored a lot and really, but I for some reason I think this is a match that they might break out. And I actually going for a 3-2 win for Charlton on this one, Phil.
All right. Well, this is definitely, we just went from the easiest game on the slate to call to probably the hardest. And the casino agrees with you because so Blackpool is plus 140, the draw is plus 220, and Charlton is plus 200. So that's basically the casino's way of saying we have no clue what's going to happen on this game. So we're just trying to get a little bit of money on each side so we don't lose our ass too bad no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Line. That being said, the draw at plus 220 seems tasty to me, especially since these are two teams that just haven't really seen an ability to close it out. Each has only one win this year. So I'm going to say 2-2.
Yeah, it's Charlton got a draw last time out, but that may just whet their appetite, and they may be just coming together because they were a team that were bringing in players late. And this is if they're going to break out and win a match and start scoring some goals against a Blackpool that concedes, this might be the time to do it. So we'll see. I think there's going to be goals in it. Just a question of which team's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and of course, these Tuesday night games, one thing to remember is that all of these teams are going to be on short rest. So, I think that the Saturday games are generally a little bit safer to bet on the favorites, where the Tuesday games are maybe a little more to take a flyer on an upset, if you think so. It's been my experience.
Well, League One, they do get a lot of Tuesday matches. A lot of the players are used to playing twice in a week, so we'll see how it pans out. And to expect some fireworks in that as far as goals are concerned. What we forgot to just mention, and we'll do it rather quickly to wrap up with, is the surprise of the week. We normally touch on a result for that one. I think for me, Phil, and since you went first last week, I'll jump in here and go first this week.
Yeah.
I've got to go with the Friday night match with the win for Fleetwood over Hull. I think that was a surprise. I think we both had that as a tighter match. In fact, we both had it as a draw. And for Fleetwood to come out and score 4 against Hull, I think that to me was my surprise of the week.
Yeah, to me, I think that it wasn't so much that Fleetwood one that was a surprise. It was that they got 4 goals. I mean, I have a hard time disagreeing that was the surprise of the week, because I mean, when I look at these other results, nothing jumps out to me where I'm saying, I can't believe that team beat that team.
Yeah,
I would say that my other surprise is kind of on the same end of the spectrum, where I'm not necessarily surprised that Ipswich beat Blackpool, but I didn't expect them to get 4 goals. I think that anytime 4 goals is just a bit of a surprise in this league, because I mean, if you look back to week 4, not one team scored 4 goals. If you look back to week 3, there was 4 teams that scored 4 goals. Week 2, there was AFC Wimbledon and Plymouth finished 4-4, but they were the only teams that scored 4 goals. nobody scored 4 goals in week 1. So, I mean, this is something where, in League One, out of 100 matches, you're going to see a team get to 4 goals, maybe 8 or 10 times. So I just think anytime somebody gets 4 goals against anybody, that's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I agree. It is that's a fact, and you score 4 goals in this league. It's not a common thing, and you certainly deserve to win when you score 4 goals. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would say that scoring 4 goals in this league is probably up there with winning the shooting percentage battle.
Yeah. Well, that's it for me, Phil, on the preview, and looking forward to doing our Stanley preview show later on in the week for their upcoming matches. 2 big matches coming up, so looking forward to discussing that with you later on in the week.
Absolutely, Tony. It's been a lot of fun, and I think this new format worked well. And I will look forward to chatting Stanley with you here later on in the week. Until then, on Stanley On.
On Stanley On. Cheers, fella.
Cheers, Tony.